Hello, boys and girls and babes. Welcome back to the Janaea Talks Caps podcast. As always, thank you so much for being here with us today. And today we get to talk Caps hockey leading up to an actual Washington Capitals game as the Caps get ready to play their first game in over a week at the conclusion of the NHL's All-Star Weekend and the Capitals bye week. They will do so, they will play, that is, against the Canadiens in Montreal tonight, and they will do so without their captain, Alex Ovechkin, who is being forced to sit out the one game mandated by the league as consequence for him choosing to skip the NHL's All-Star game, which honestly is pretty ridiculous if you ask me. They should definitely allow guys who are in their 30s at least to skip it if they want to, but that's, of course, a whole other conversation for another time. The Caps are obviously in a great position, sitting in first place in the entire NHL, so Ovi and the Caps organization really are not going to sweat it too much that he does have to miss the one regular season game. But still, I don't know that Gary Bettman realizes that in situations like this, by making Ovi sit out, you're really hurting the fans in Montreal who want to see this guy play more than you're hurting Ovechkin himself or the Capitals organization. So maybe that's something to think about moving forward, that it's kind of dumb to punish a 34-year-old for wanting to take the time to rest his body rather than playing some gimmick of an all-star game that he's already played in approximately 200 times before in his career. So just something to think about, Mr. Bettman. Just something to think about. Anyways, today we are talking goalies, and specifically, of course, the Washington Capitals' two goalies, Braden Holtby and Ilya Samsonov. Now, I want to just start by saying, something here. Since we were talking about the All-Star Weekend, I just have to say that I've seen some Caps fans on social media actually using the All-Star game as yet another occasion to rip into Braden Holtby and to, make fun of him for letting in some goals, etc. So can I just point out how utterly stupid that actually is. Now, if you didn't catch the All-Star game, Holtby let in 4 goals during his time in the net. And while that may sound like a lot of goals for an All-Star game, you guys, it's really not. All-Star games are notoriously high-scoring, as no one is at all interested in playing defense, and that's very obvious when you watch the games. In fact, the average number of goals scored during an NHL All-Star game over the last decade is 10 goals. And the goals per game is even higher now with the format having been switched to 3-on-3. And I'm not saying this to be some type of stat nerd who analyzes a fucking All-Star game. I'm saying it to point out how utterly ridiculous it is for some fans to use this, of all things, as another occasion to bash Braden Holtby. Yes, Holtby did let in 4 goals. So did Frederik Andersen for the Atlantic Division. So did Jacob Markstrom for the Pacific Division. So did Jordan Binnington for the Central Division, even with the All-Star game being played in St. Louis, where obviously his Blues play. And Connor Hellebuck of the Winnipeg Jets was actually the worst of the night, allowing 6 goals against in 10 minutes of work. The point is, it's a fucking All-Star game, and if you're bashing Holtby for letting in some goals and or trying to point to his All-Star game performance as a reason for why the Caps should trade him right now, then I'm sorry, but you are a fucking Looney Tune, and thank God you are not the one making the decisions for our Washington Capitals. Now, there are 2 sides to this Holtby versus Samsonov debate. There's the present, and then there's the future. And I do think that we have to split it into 2, and I'm going to address both right here in this episode. So first of all, let's not shy away from it. Holtby is having a rough go of it right now. He's been going through a rough patch. It's been well documented, which, by the way, this happens to everyone. Yes, even you out there listening, I'm sure you're not perfect every single day at your job, just as I'm not perfect every single day at mine either. We are all human. We all have days, weeks, even months where we are not at our best. The difference for us, of course, is that when we drop the ball at our jobs, there aren't 19,000 people there watching and taunting our every mistake. So the why behind Holtby's struggles right now is up for debate. Personally, I think his contract status is probably weighing heavily on him right now. This is home, it's where he was drafted. It's a place where he loves to play, where he's won a Stanley Cup, where his teammates are more like his family. And you would be kidding yourself if you think that it's not affecting him at least a little bit worrying about whether this is his last hurrah with the only NHL organization he's ever known. Ilya Samsonov actually said as much in a recent interview. He said basically that Holtby's contract status is weighing heavily on Holtby right now. And if that is the case, then we have good reason to project that his play will pick up again once that contract status is decided upon one way or the other. He is not going to suck forever. He's a great goalie, and he will be a great goalie whether it's in Washington or whether it's somewhere else. And he's only 30 years old, so in goaltender years, that is really nowhere near the downslide of your career. So let's not act as if it's time to get rid of him because he's past his prime, because he's not. That is simply not the case. And even if it's not his contract status that's the reason behind his subpar play right now, who cares? It doesn't matter. Like I said, every single player goes through rough patches throughout their career, no matter what the cause of it is. Even the greatest goalies in NHL history have stretches where they could not stop a beach ball moving only 10 kilometers an hour. For those of you who are not Canadian, 10 kilometers an hour, not very fast at all. And in Holtby's case, no matter what the reasoning has been behind any of the rough patches he's ever gone through in his career, the one constant has been that he has always been able to come out of it stronger and play like a brick fucking wall thereafter. Always. And Ilya Samsonov, meanwhile, obviously, he's been doing an incredible job in the net. We all knew that he was promising. There was a reason why he was rated as the best goaltender in the world who was not currently playing in the NHL. And he's showing us this season that he can do it at the NHL level. So the sky really is the limit for the 22-year-old who, rightfully so, is generating some Calder Trophy buzz at this point. It's really hard for a goalie to win the Calder Trophy if they aren't their team's starting goaltender. But still, his stats say he's been one of the best, if not the best, rookies in the NHL this season. Cale Makar is going to win it, but I think if Samsonov had been the Caps starting goaltender from start to finish, then he probably could have won it. He is leading the entire NHL right now with a 2.06 goals against average. He's third in the entire NHL with a .927 save percentage, and he's got 15 wins and only 2 losses, which is obviously just ridiculous. He's won 10 straight games as of right now, and in the Caps' last game before the bye week against the New York Islanders, Samsonov became the first goalie ever in NHL history to win his first 9 career road games. So you could say that the kid is pretty good. You could say that for sure. And yet, even if he were the Caps starting goaltender from start to finish this season, we still can't say for sure if he would have won the Calder Trophy because, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, the rest. We can't say because we don't know. And that's a lesson that a lot of Caps fans could stand to learn right now. Because here's the thing. For this season, right now, those of you who are saying that the Caps should trade Holtby right now are just completely off of your fucking rockers, like you're nuts. You need a trip to the funny farm and to look in the mirror and be forced to see the error of your ways because we simply do not know how Ilya Samsonov would perform in the Stanley Cup playoffs because he has never been there before. And honestly, this is a story that's like as old as time. You don't even have to think back that far in order to find the last time that this exact same story was playing out. And to find the last time that this exact same story was playing out for your Washington Capitals. As in early 2018, the last few months of that regular season, Braden Holtby was really, really struggling, just like he is now. He was just off, and everything was going in the net against him. And you will remember as well that Philip Grubauer actually got a lot of the starts for the Caps down the stretch in that regular season. And then in the playoffs as well, round 1 against the Columbus Blue Jackets, Grubauer got the first 2 starts. So the Caps would lose the first 2 games of that series on home ice. It was a total disaster, as we all remember. The sky was falling, all that. And Grubauer, largely being unable to come up with a big save when the Caps needed it. He was not the same brick wall that he had been in the regular season, and the Caps went down 2-0 in the series with Braden Holtby sitting on the bench. And then what happened? Holtby comes in, and just like he always has done throughout his career, he bounces back in a huge way, putting his poor performance of the last few months of the regular season behind him, and morphing back into the Holt beast that we know and love. Of course, he won 4 straight games against Columbus, getting the Caps into the second round, and Holtby stayed in Holtbeast mode for the entire playoffs, all the way to the Caps winning the franchise's first Stanley Cup. So all in all, Holtby was a ridiculous 16-6 in games that he started in the postseason. This, again, after one of the worst regular seasons of his entire career. So all I'm saying is, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater here. Don't throw out the greatest goaltender in franchise history just because he's having a rough patch, which he has proven, by the way, time and time again throughout his career, that he is fully capable of bouncing back from in a big way. Don't throw out the guy who can win playoff games for you, especially in a season where your team absolutely has the weapons to win the Stanley Cup. Like, this is not a season where you just want to, kind of throw in the towel and trade a guy just because, he's going to be a UFA. You don't do that. You don't want to, trade away your UFAs for draft picks or whatever you can get from them, and basically say, hey, we're not going for it this year. This is a team that can win the Stanley Cup. They have a roster that can win the Stanley Cup. So we're going to need Braden Holtby for the playoffs. You can absolutely quote me on that. And by the way, it is a luxury having 2 goalies like this heading into the playoffs, a luxury most teams would kill to have. You never know when somebody's going to get injured, or when Samsonov is going to hit a rough patch himself, or if Samsonov can even win playoff games at all. He hasn't proven it yet. Braden Holtby has. And, the situation is very similar to the Grubauer situation of 2018, because Grubauer, just like Samsonov is now, he was completely on fire to end the regular season in 2018. And Holtby was simultaneously in a slump, just like he is now. And a bunch of people, you will remember, a bunch of people thought that we should trade Holtby before the deadline in 2018 too. And then what happened? Grubauer couldn't make a big save in the playoffs. And I'm sorry, but it's a damn good thing that our general manager does not listen to the cries of the fans, because if he had traded Holtby back in February 2018, like so many fans wanted him to, then we would have lost in the first round that spring, maybe even have been swept, and we would still have no Stanley Cup. If that happens, really, who knows what happens? All bets are off. We might, you never know what could have happened. Like, Ovechkin might not finish his career as a Washington Capital. Backstrom might not have been re-signed. You never know what happens if the Caps don't win the Stanley Cup. So again, it's a damn good thing that our general manager does not listen to the cries of the fans. There's a reason why he's getting paid to make the decisions for this team, and you and I are not. The same thing as well kind of happened to the Pittsburgh Penguins. They won back-to-back cups with the tandem of Marc-Andre Fleury and Matt Murray. Fleury, of course, being the veteran who had been around for a long time, and Murray, the young rookie sensation. And then they decided to let go of Fleury. And what happened? They lost to the Caps, who they could never seem to lose to before, in the first season that they didn't have Fleury. And Fleury, just to twist the knife, went all the way to the Cup final with his new team, and then lost to the Capitals, which I'm sure the Penguins were really, really happy about. Caps getting their first Stanley Cup. And Matt Murray, he crumbled under the pressure without that veteran presence behind him backing him up. And again, that's a story that's as old as time. A lot of the time, a young goalie will look really good when he's got a Fleury or a Holtby waiting behind him to clean up any messes. It takes a lot of the pressure off, but the minute that veteran presence is gone, the minute that you're on your own, the minute that you don't have that safety net or security blanket or whatever you want to call it, of the veteran guy sitting on the bench ready to bail you out, then suddenly it becomes a whole different game. A lot more pressure, and most guys cannot handle it. That's why you see so many of them crumble the minute that they're on their own. Matt Murray as well, he didn't win a single playoff game the following season after that either, as the Pens got swept by the Islanders. And then Murray is having a terrible season this season as well. He's actually been relegated to backup duties behind Tristan Jarry. So, all I'm saying really here, all I'm saying is you never know, right? Like, don't be so quick to throw out the veteran guy, the guy who's proven he can win the big games for you. I hate to bring it up as well, but Jim Carey is another ugly comparison for the Caps fans, right? For all of us, we all remember Jim Carey. Amazing rookie season. He wins the Vezina Trophy, and then he basically just sucks forever after that. And he's out of the NHL entirely just a few short years later. So all I'm saying is, a lot of the time rookies, they look really good and it doesn't always last. And so, I guess what I'm saying is Holtby has proven it over an almost decade-long career with the Caps already. He's proven he can make the big saves and win games when it counts. And it would just be very foolish to disregard that if we want another Stanley Cup the way that I know we all do. And by the way, I'm not saying that Samsonov is for sure going to suck in the playoffs. I'm not saying that he'll follow the exact same path of Grubauer and not be able to make the big save when all of the chips are down. I'm simply saying that we do not know, whereas with Holtby, we do know. And maybe Samsonov will be the best goalie ever in the playoffs. Maybe we'll win the cup with him starting every game. That could totally happen. And, hopefully it does happen. I really don't give a shit who's in net when we win the cup, so long as we win. But all I'm saying is that right now, we don't know what we're going to get from Samsonov in the playoffs. We simply don't know. He's unproven in the NHL's postseason. So for now, it's much better to keep both goalies in DC for the upcoming playoff run. It's the smart choice. It's really the only choice if you want to give yourself the best chance to win another Stanley Cup, which, like I said, I know we all want that. And then, if Samsonov proves he can win in the Stanley Cup playoffs, then you can let go of Holtby. Sure, fine, whatever. That would make sense, even though it would be unbelievably sad as a fan, But trading Holtby before the season's deadline and heading into the playoffs with a Stanley Cup caliber team with an unproven 22-year-old rookie in net who has 19 total games of NHL experience under his belt, that'd be as ridiculous as it is frighteningly stupid. So for now, just support both goalies. They're both our guys, and we're likely going to need both of them if we want to win another Stanley Cup. And in Holtby's case, seriously as well, show some fucking respect, all right? Really, if you're a fan of this team, the guy has won a Stanley Cup for you. The only Stanley Cup that we have so far. He's the only goalie in franchise history to have won one for us. The numbers say he's the best goalie in franchise history. So just show some fucking respect. We're all playing for the same team here. We all want the same things. And I guarantee you, by the way, that Holtby wants to win another cup for us even more than we wanted ourselves. So just have a little faith. And then, like I said, future-wise, if Samsonov proves he can win the big games in the playoffs when the spotlight is shining its brightest, then by all means, it's very intriguing what the already NHL best Caps could do with all of that extra cap space that they would gain by letting Holtby walk. Especially if they're seeing no drop-off in net from Holtby to Samsonov. But for now, we've got a playoff run to worry about, and it'd be stupid not to be as absolutely stacked at every position as is possible. And that certainly includes goaltending. So just chill on the calls for trading the Holtby, Caps fans. You were wrong in 2018, so it's very possible, I would say likely even, that you're wrong again now. And so anyways, that's all I've got for you today, Caps fans. I want to stop before I pop a blood vessel here, defending the Holtby's honor. So until next time, babes, don't forget to subscribe to our show if you haven't already. We are available on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on iHeartRadio, on Google Podcasts, on Stitcher, on TuneIn, basically anywhere and everywhere that you get your podcast from, we're there. And we would love to have you along for the ride as the season heads into its final months and then obviously into the playoffs and the chase for Lord Stanley as well. And leave us a review for our show as well, if you feel so inclined. I always love reading them. We've had some really nice ones coming in lately, and it always makes my day hearing what my fellow Caps fans think of the show. It really is much appreciated. And yeah, like I said, until next time, stay classy, babes. Let's grab a big win in Montreal tonight. And as always, let's go Caps!